friends, welcome back. I'm here today with Jenny over in Sheffield in the UK. I'm so excited to have her here today to share her really amazing and inspiring full recovery story. She was sick with I'll let her explain the details, but it sounds like a combination of CFS, long COVID, something that a lot of people have been going through in recent years, and got really unwell and was bedbound. And she's told me that she's watched all of my recovery interviews, which is impressive because there are a lot of them, and just dreamed of one day being well again and being able to do this. And now here she is. So Jenny, welcome. Thank you so much. It's incredible to have you here.
Thank you. It's very exciting because, like I was just saying to you, I discovered you when I was totally bedbound and you gave me some hope. And then now I am here, recovered.
It's so amazing. So for you watching those videos, what role did people like yourself who, put themselves out there and shared their story, what role did that play for you?
It was massive, actually, because I think I found you at a point when I just got quite hopeless. All of the sort of options of routes to recover in the UK through the National Health Service and stuff, and the long COVID clinics, ME clinics hadn't worked at all, and I felt I'd had a really bad crash. I was bedbound. I felt quite hopeless, and then I found you and your recovery videos, and it just gave me that bit of hope. And I thought, if I ever get better, I'd love to be able to do that for somebody else.
I think it's amazing that you're doing this, because I know for most people who do this, they're not used to doing videos, and it can be a nerve-wracking thing and a very vulnerable thing, and the internet can be a scary place, even though our community is very nice and very supportive.
It is, but I really wanted to do it because I know there's a couple of videos that really resonated for me and made a massive difference, like particularly the one with Rebecca Tolan. So if I could be one, like a video that resonates with somebody, then that would be great.
Well, people watching, stick around to the end, because Jenny's going to share with us, everything that ended up working for her to allow her to go from being bedbound to now fully recovered. And I'd also like to thank Viome for sponsoring this video. If you're experiencing some symptoms that you can't figure out the cause for, the answer could potentially be in your gut, because your gut microbiome is where 70% of your immune system is found. Poor gut health and microbiome imbalances can lead to inflammation and a host of issues that can affect not only your immunity, but your weight, skin, energy levels, sleep quality, and even your mental health. Viome's tests analyze your gut using their cutting-edge NMRA technology, and your gut health results that you get back will give you information on about 20 different health scores. They'll tell you what foods are good for you, what foods are bad for you, and why, all specific to your gut results. When you sign up for Viome's Precision Prebiotic and Probiotic Plan, that's a mouthful, like I recently did, you will get their gut health intelligence test shipped right to your doorstep. And once Viome has analyzed your results, usually takes about 2 to 3 weeks, you will get those results delivered directly to you via the Viome app. And they will provide you with a personalized premium probiotic and prebiotic supplement specific for what your gut health tests revealed that you need, and shipped to your door each month. I learned from my test results that my overall health score was in a good range. I have good microbial diversity, good gut lining, but my metabolic fitness wasn't great. I was surprised to see in my results that to remedy this, I could avoid some foods, including beets, celery, arugula, and increase things like artichokes, cinnamon, figs, garlic, and some other things. Go to tryviome.com/Raelan and enter the code Raelan to get 20% off your first 3 months and also free shipping. This is all also linked in this video's description. All right, so Jenny, take us back. How did this all start for you?
It all started with what I think was COVID, but it didn't really all start with that, because I think I'd had a tough couple of years beforehand, and I definitely had a build-up of stress that I wasn't managing well. So when I got COVID, it was kind of like the perfect storm, the perfect fire. I know I've heard people say that. So there was things leading up to it, but that was the COVID was when my life completely changed. Yeah, it was just for the absolute worst. So I had a cough, and that wasn't so bad. But then when that started to go, I just started to have some really, really scary experiences. Feeling really, really lightheaded and dizzy. There was just some strange things going on, and it was really scary. And then I did something a bit crazy. I took my son to a theme park because they'd all been closed in the UK because of COVID, and it was a point when they just reopened a bit. And it was raining all day long, and it should have been a sign that don't go. But we went, and I went on this spinning ride, even though I really wasn't. Something strange was going on. I went on this spinning ride, and I never stopped spinning after that. It was that's the moment that everything changed. I came home from that theme park just really not right, and I went to bed, and then I had like extreme vertigo, migraines, fatigue. It was really terrifying, and that was the start of a sort of 2.5-year ordeal. Really, 2 years being properly sick, and then in 6 months getting back on my feet.
I think it's important to note that you have 2 kids, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Because I have quite a few people reach out to me saying, like, do you have any examples of people who recover with kids? Because I only see people without kids. Is it possible?
Yeah, I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because that was a massive thing for me. I remember even posting, I was on your Facebook group, does anybody have young kids? Is this possible? Can you recover? Because I watched all your videos, and some people sort of had older kids, and I never watched ones that people had younger kids. And I actually ended up making a friend on your Facebook group who had young children, and then we supported each other the whole way until we got better, and she's better now as well. So that was lovely. So I did find somebody. But yeah, so when I got sick, my youngest son was a baby who just turned 1, and my oldest son was 3. But really, it all really started from having them. I had a difficult time after I had them. I didn't cope very well with it. It's really hard. I didn't cope very well with the stress of it, and I had a big panic attack after I had my first son. Just for the sleepless nights, we all got a virus. It all just got really too much, and I had a panic attack. But then I was really terrified of that. And now I realise I was holding a lot of emotions in. I was scared to feel emotions, and it was that build-up of holding in some really traumatic things for the 2 years before I really got ill. So when I had my second son, I was really scared because of the panic attack I'd had with Ralphie, my first son. And then he was born, and everything was actually fine. He was like an easy baby. He was sleeping. So everything seemed fine. But then I had a few incidences where my sodium levels dropped really, really dangerously low, which is really dangerous. It can kill you. I didn't realise that this is something that can happen postnatally. But anyway, so when this happened, I'd get rushed off to hospital in the middle of the night. It was really terrifying. And they'd top my sodium levels back up, and I didn't really understand why it was happening. And so then I just went back into fight or flight. I was terrified. And then I had my first sort of episode of what I think now was a mind-body illness. And I ended up getting admitted into hospital for a week, and I was separated from my baby, which was horrendous because he was only 2 weeks old. And then, but they did lots of tests. They weren't really linking stress at that time with that. They did lots of tests, and they discharged me from hospital and said I was fine. And then I was fine. And now I realise it was because the weight and all of that stress had gone. They'd reassured me I was fine. But then what happened as well, it was a really, really unfortunate time. So 3 days after I got discharged from hospital, I noticed that my baby had a really high temperature, and they shouldn't have a temperature over a certain amount at that young age, and he did. So I had to rush into A&E, and it turned out he had meningitis. So I'd only just been discharged from hospital 3 days previous to that. I'd been separated from him when he was only 2 weeks old, and now we're in hospital again, and it was terrifying. He had a lumbar puncture in his spine. We got there, and professionals just swarmed him. He was really sick. He had tubes coming out of him. It was oxygen to help him breathe. It was really, really scary. And I think then I probably just went into freeze, and then just sort of he recovered, and he's absolutely fine now. But I think after that, I'd had a really, really traumatic time, and I just went back to my life with two very young kids. So, it's intense at that time anyway. And again, I hadn't learned that feeling those emotions were all right. Even though I worked in mental health, I hadn't quite related it to myself. And I was really scared of feeling those emotions. So all of this had happened to build up to getting COVID. So I think I'd got a lot of stress built up in me, and I was sort of, in fight and flight response a lot. And then when I went back to work, so after having a year maternity leave, I was really pushing myself to try and get this promotion at work, which was just obviously the absolute worst time to be trying to get a promotion at work when I'd been through all of that. So I was putting myself under a lot of pressure. And then I got COVID. So it was like all of that. And then my body just said, no, like that's enough. And it was the start of a really, really, horrendous couple of years where I wasn't able to be a mom at all a lot of the time. It was horrendous. I think I was pretty severe, really. I had times when my husband would have to help me go to the toilet. That showering was too much. I really lost myself. I couldn't really talk to people on the phone. I found that fatigue. And even when I found your videos, I'd have to break. I would only listen to them because watching things was too difficult. I'd have to break them up. That's what I felt like I had to do at the time. Yeah, life got really, really, really bad for a couple of years. But then, fortunately, I found my way out. And it wasn't my end point.
What were you thinking, or where was your head at when it was at the worst of the worst? Because that sounds terrifying. And I can't even imagine with two small children.
It was terrifying because, I was given really hopeless things as well, because although I think it was COVID that triggered it, because I didn't actually have a positive test. I was diagnosed with ME. So, I think they're pretty much the same thing, really. But I said to a doctor once, I'm feeling really depressed because of the lack of progress in my condition. And he said to me, well, that's something that you need to get used to because you're going to have this for the rest of your life. And, when you're told that sort of thing, it was terrifying, and it was putting me into more of a terrified state. And I had sometimes when I did get really, really low, it was like I was watching my life go by. I was watching my children grow up and I wasn't part of it. And I got really depressed. And there were times when I felt suicidal. I never felt like suicidal in terms of I was going to do anything at that point. But I felt like if this was my life, I couldn't live like that. And which is just like an awful thing to say, because it would be my absolute worst fear to ever leave my children without a mom. That would be my worst fear. But I was that low. There just didn't seem to be a way out of it. But I mean, fortunately, I had something in me that did pick myself up, and probably the children. And I got a great husband who was really supportive, and family and friends. And I did pick myself up and I kept trying, and I didn't ever stay in that place forever. I felt pretty down, but I didn't stay in the place of giving up. I kept trying. I tried, right, okay, if none of the health professionals I'm seeing are helping, I need to find something from somewhere else. And then that's where I found your videos at a time when I was totally bedbound, and they were a little bit of light. And I thought, right, okay, people do get better. Okay, maybe I need to find a different way around this. And I watched all sorts of your videos, and then I tried a couple of things that didn't really help to start with. But I think that's one of the great things about your channel, is that you don't just interview people from, one approach. People find the approaches that work for different approaches that work for them. And so I tried an approach I found, which was involved really, really strict pacing. And for me, that made things worse, because although I did get better probably pacing, but just in a much more natural sort of going with it in, how I felt at the time. But this pacing was very much like I go for a walk each day, but I could only walk 3 minutes, and then I had to increase it by another minute the week after. And as a mum, you know, I was never ever sticking to it properly. Oh, if I'd been stood up 10 minutes, I needed to sit down 20 minutes. I was never sticking up to it properly because, if I had that little bit of energy, I was going to do something with my children and I was going to break it. And then I was in this cycle of, oh my gosh, I stood up for a minute longer than I needed to. I'm not going to get better. I've messed it up. So that wasn't very helpful. And then I did all of the, I spent lots of money on supplements and stuff like that and went down. But these all they were kind of useful in a way because they all sort of led me to coming around to the right ways for me. And I think I just started to link a little bit like, I was having quite a tough couple of years before I got poorly. Maybe that's got something to do with it. So I started seeing a psychotherapist. I think, again, from your channel, I'd heard somebody do that, which wouldn't have been something that I would have thought to do to recover from, this that seemed like a very physical illness. But she was incredible. And she was really incredible and did a lot of counselling and just sort of going through trauma, releasing trauma. And it was hard at times because, I was releasing trauma. And so the feelings were horrible. And at times it'd make me crash and I'd think, is this the right thing? But then it started to just sort of start to piece things together. I found a brain retraining program from your YouTube channel again, which is a really great one. And I know a lot of people have recovered, but for me, it really helped with learning about the nervous system and stuff. But it was an approach of like, you need to do this homework and that homework. And then it was another thing to stress me out. Oh, I haven't done the homework. And, so I think what I needed to do was calm my nervous system. And then I watched a video you did with Rebecca Tolan. And I was just like, yeah, that's it. It just really, really resonated for me. And she said something at the end of her interview, which was like a massive thing that helped me get better. She said, somebody said to her, "You're not sick." And I know she's explained this before, on this channel before, because obviously that sounds really offensive because you are really sick. But I understood what she meant. Like, I've had all the tests, I'd had an MRI of my brain. This isn't something physical. This is coming from a dysregulated nervous system. And I just understood that. And then, I found her and her website and I just devoured all the information she shares on there and read some books listened to, because I couldn't read, books by John Sarno, and it all just started to come together and I got better.
Amazing. I'm so sorry you've had to go through all of this. As you're talking, I had goosebumps and it's just horrifying to hear what you went through. So I'm so sorry that you had to go through that, and how heartbreaking it must be to not be able to be the mother that I'm sure you wanted to be in those times to your children. And really powerful. I really appreciate you sharing that with us. But so amazing that you did find and listen to your gut, it sounds like, about really what fit for you and what didn't. For me, when I was recovering for a long time, I really didn't. I just did what people told me to do, whether it seemed to be working or not. And I would hold on to things. I'd cling to them for too long, despite the fact that they weren't working. So I like that you saw what was and wasn't working.
I think I was lucky though, because when you got better, there wasn't much information. I had people like you and Rebecca, and hopefully people in the future will be even luckier. They'll have stuff in the actual mainstream medicine, but there's not at the moment in the UK really. But I think if I hadn't have found you and Rebecca and my psychotherapist, I just don't know if I would have ever got better. I don't know if I would have linked it enough without having a bit of information.
I'm wondering, because I do hear these themes about psychotherapy, and people have said many great things about working with Rebecca. So what did that look like for you on a day-to-day basis, like working on your recovery? What was an average day or week like?
So I didn't actually really work with Rebecca that much, because she's really generous and she shares things on her website, a lot of different YouTube videos and books, like references of books to read and stuff. So I just sort of started devouring that, and it was the knowledge, it was the piecing together. Right, wow, look at all that trauma that went on those 2 years before I got poorly. and it just made sense. And I think I was quite, well, not lucky. I definitely wasn't lucky, but from what happened after I had my second son, I linked that, right, okay, that was a mind body. I had the low sodium, which was obviously a physical thing, but my reaction after that was a mind body condition, and I had that evidence. So a lot of it was about learning for me, but then I started another massive thing was the somatic tracking, because I'd been so terrified of feeling my emotions. So I was so scared of that panic attack I'd had after I'd had my first son. So it was just quite revelationary to be actually feeling my symptoms, my emotions, because the symptoms as well, I was terrified of them and I was pushing them away. And I remember actually a video you did with Rebecca, her first recovery video, she mentioned somatic tracking in it in literally about 3 minutes. And I just went over and over those 3 minutes and just sat down and did it myself. And it was an amazing experience, because these emotions and difficult symptoms I'd just been trying to avoid, and actually just sitting with them and feeling them, it was okay. And it was like a massive weight had been lifted off me. And I think that's something I have to try and remind myself all the time now. I've just gone back to work, which obviously is a bit of a scary experience. And it's to remind myself, like, that's okay. It's a bit daunting. I've been out of work for a while. It's okay to feel those emotions of nerves and stuff, which I obviously hadn't been doing before. So yeah, the somatic tracking was massive. But what it looked like, really, me recovering was just getting back to my life. And, I wasn't running marathons straight away or anything, but I was just doing what I felt I could do in that moment. And I knew there wasn't anything physical. I knew that I couldn't hurt myself anymore. Like Dr. John Sarna says, this is a harmless condition. You are not in danger. You can go and live your life. And that's what I did. I went and lived my life. And it was gradual, but it wasn't planned to be gradual. Like, I remember having some friends round and had massive brain fog, and I was really struggling to concentrate what they said, but I felt so happy because I knew I was okay and it was fine. So I was sort of pushing through, which I know like that's dangerous, I shouldn't do, but I was pushing through with the knowledge that I was safe. My nervous system felt safe because I knew I was okay, and that was the difference. And then we had a holiday booked to Cyprus, and it'd been delayed a couple of years because of COVID. So we never would have gone on it, but it came to the point that we had to go on it. And I just thought, oh gosh, I couldn't manage it. But we thought, well, we've got to go on it. So going there, I was in a wheelchair through the airport. On the way back, I walked through the airport all the way back, and it had been a night flight. And I was fine because I'd gone on holiday and it was great. And each day I discovered, oh wow, I could do a bit of swimming and I'm okay. I can go for a meal and I'm okay. And so it just kind of built up gradually. And, I'm not saying it was easy. It wasn't always easy. I had to do a lot of talking to myself and reassuring myself and brain retraining, really, just a really compassionate way of saying, you're safe, you're okay, you're not sick, you can do this. And life just came back.
You've seen all the recovery videos, or a lot of them. I feel like it's really hard to deny that now, that this is a path to recovery. Maybe not for everybody, but for a lot of people. It's just over and over and over I'm hearing this. And I think about my own recovery, and I didn't used to explain it in this way, but when I think back to it, I see it in these terms. And once I was partially recovered, and then I left Canada and I started traveling, and it was very hard because I was still very sick. But that's when I started being able to do more and more. Just like you were saying, I was happy. I'd push myself a little bit. I'm like, oh, it was okay. And I just slowly, that wasn't the whole piece of recovery for me, but I do see when I hear you talking and other people with similar experiences, when I look back at my own journey, I see that was all a part of it. I just didn't recognize what was happening because we didn't have a lot of these videos and people explaining to us, what the thing was.
And in those moments when you feel really happy and then you've totally forgotten about the symptoms, those were evidence to me even more. Those moments probably when you were traveling, I imagine you probably had moments like that when, you're happy and they just sort of dissipated for a little bit. So that was like more and more evidence for me. I think the thing, people, have different things going on for them. They recover in different ways. I'm not saying my way is the only way at all. But I think there is a similarity of calming the nervous system down. When you're in fight or flight, that's just not good for your body. And I think learning to find joy again. And some people do it through diet, and that feels really right. It's making them feel good, well, happy. I think it's really important to be calm in your nervous system, and that's the thing that wasn't working for me. I think when I was trying approaches, I have a friend that recovered through pacing, but it made her feel really safe and calm because she felt like, I'm doing this safely, I'm building up safely. But for me, it didn't make me feel like that. Because of having young children, I always felt like I was messing it up. So it made me feel like I was more at threat. So I think like the similarity is making yourself feel safe.
And absolutely, I hear this so many times, for sure. That seems to be vital. And then also recently I interviewed Ashok Gupta, and he's really researched brain training a lot and has a lot of clinical studies on this. And he was talking about how for brain training to be effective, like our brains are most neuroplastic when we're not stressed. So many of us understandably dismiss mindset and happiness and all of that, and meditation and all the things that can bring us into a better state. But when we are working on a brain training, and again, I did brain training with my recovery, I just didn't know I was doing it at the time. And so if you're trying to do, let's say you enroll in a brain training program, but you're really stressed because of a bunch of other things, and then you're wondering, why isn't this working for me? I'm not saying that's the reason. I'm not saying it works for everybody, but it's just, I love how with each passing day, week, we're starting to get a clearer picture of what's happening for a lot of us.
Exactly. And then the type of brain retraining as well. Different things work for different people. I was doing this one that was saying stop thoughts, but it was making me go a bit. Whereas the brain retraining I did really was just being really loving to myself and just saying, it's okay, Jen, you're safe, you're not sick, you can do this, you're not in. It was just sort of like cheering myself on. It was just really kind, low pressure. I wasn't beating myself up if I hadn't done it, but when I was catching those moments and I was doing it, it was just reassuring myself. I was just thinking as well, I want to mention that everything sort of came together at the same sort of time. I got kittens, they really helped. Definitely helped. I really wanted these kittens, and they were so soothing. They made me really happy. When you couldn't do a lot, I had these little kittens cuddled up on me and running around. So that was a good strategy.
Someone else I interviewed recently said that squirrels were a big part of their recovery. They
I heard that one, yeah.
Go sit outside and feed the squirrels, and we dismiss these things, but they can be massive. So yeah, I love that. A lot of people also say, because you've been through something which sounds incredibly traumatic to me. I'm sure it was. So has this changed you? Do you feel different now than a few years ago?
Yeah, 100%. And I know I've listened to a lot of recovery videos. I think yours as well. When you say it's kind of difficult to say you're glad it happened. I'm not really glad it happened, but I think it's definitely, if I could have learned those lessons without it happening, and that would have been nice. But yeah, it's definitely changed my life for the better completely. Just in so many different ways. I think I wasn't, I wasn't brave enough or comfortable enough to be completely myself. And it's just a learning journey you go on, isn't it? So when I got better, I got my nose pierced, I got a tattoo, I've gone back to curly hair, just things like that. I maybe would have thought, oh, maybe what would people think about that? But I've just gone and done it. And it's just a whole different way of living, not to be scared of emotions, to realise actually you're feeling sad, that's an okay emotion, you need to process that. So that's huge. And I'm so much calmer. I had the anxiety after having the children, and that doesn't happen anymore. I just say if I felt a bit of anxiety, it's just like an emotion, really, being nervous about something, and just that I'm living a really authentic life. When I got better, I really liked my job. It hadn't been a bad job or anything. I'm an occupational therapist, but I thought I need to use something from these 2 years. I've got to do something from what has happened in these 2 years. So I've originally wanted to, help other people get better, like mind body coach or, as an occupational therapist. I helped out on Rebecca's course. So that was a really lovely moment. But then I changed my mind and I thought, if I could go and get a job in the NHS, I would do that tomorrow. But the only way to do it, I'd have to set my own business. And I thought, I need to put myself first at the moment. That's too much. What's important to me is to spend time with my children, and my family, and live life again. So unfortunately, I've not done that. But what the other thing I thought, right, okay, so I need to do something that I know is going to help and is meaningful. So the other thing that happened in these 2 years was we discovered that my youngest son's autistic. So I thought, right, that's the other thing I'm really passionate about. And also it's the thing that's still present, because in some ways I kind of want to leave this behind. I don't want to forget about it, but I want to get on with my life. So I've now got a job at a specialist school working with autistic children and young adolescents. So that feels really great. So I'm living life. I didn't like my job before, but I'm living it really meaningfully now. So yeah, it's changed everything completely. And yeah, I am grateful for it. I don't know whether I'd have learnt these lessons without it. I mean, I could have done without the 2 years in bed. And then I still feel really, this is, if other mums are listening, I think it's important to say, I feel really bad about those 2 years, my kids losing their mum for that time, and I still struggle with that. And I worry about, has it affected them? But I'm just trying, they have got their mum back, which is the main thing, and I've got that. I've got a second chance at life, and they've got a second chance of having a mum. So I'm so grateful for that.
How many people right now are crying watching this right now? Oh, I just want to reach through and give you a hug. This is so
and I know that's
amazing.
probably poignant with your mum, and I'm just really sorry that she wasn't around to have, been able to learn all these things.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think that in almost every interview I do, I think, oh, what if my mom had known about this? Oh my goodness, that person got better in 3 weeks. Like, but I know she would be so happy and so proud to see the way all of us are coming together, because this wasn't happening in her day, and
And
supporting one another.
She'd be so proud of you and everything you're doing.
She would be. Yes, I know she would be. So anyways, thank you so much, Jenny, for doing this today. I know this will mean a lot to so many people. I really appreciate you doing this.
I hope so. It's been brilliant. Like I said, my Oprah of the non-COVID world. I've got to meet you.
Yeah, she said that before we started recording, and I had a good laugh. And I said, hardly, but I said, my husband will hear about this at dinner. Guess what I got called today? And for those of you watching, I'm thinking, if this resonates, if you enjoyed the story, I'm going to link up here a video. Rebecca was on the channel, Rebecca Tolan, that we've been talking about recently again, and it's just been a massively popular video. She really walks through a lot of, what worked for her, and that what she now works with clients. So I really encourage you to check it out. And for those of you watching, sending so much love to you. I know there's a good chance you're facing some incredibly hard things. Keep at it. You have got this. I hope you enjoyed this video here with Jenny. I hope you got something out of it, and I hope to see you in the next one.